the monarch, who has been shrouded in controversy and sickness for most of his reign. Of course, the announcement of his cancer, which I have previously revealed is sadly terminal, and of course the arrest of his brother Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. But this address is all about trying to stabilise the British royal family and in some way link Charles's so far, and I'm going to be brutally honest about this, highly unsuccessful reign to the very successful reign of his mother. So he will make the speech on what would have been her 100th birthday. This news revealed by the Daily Mirror, who says that the April 21st address will commemorate the life and legacy of Queen Elizabeth II. Russell Myers, the Mirror's royal editor, also reporting that the monarch will, alongside Queen Camilla, host a special reception at Buckingham Palace for dozens of representatives from organisations and charities with a deep connection to our late Queen. They say Charles has spent months handpicking the guest list from hundreds of patronages that Queen Elizabeth had throughout her life. Royal insiders have revealed that Charles's personally penned emotional tribute will celebrate his beloved late mother's achievements and her dedication to duty. The King and Queen, who are currently residing at their Birkhall home in Scotland on the Balmoral estate, will return to London on April the 21st, when the sovereign speech will be broadcast to the nation and the Commonwealth. Charles, who is 77, is expected to convey what an inspiration his mother was, not only to himself personally, but to the rest of the royal family. Senior members of the royal family are also expected to accompany the King and Queen at Buckingham Palace for the special reception. The Prince and Princess of Wales, so William and Catherine, as well as the Princess Royal, Anne and Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, Edward and Sophie, are also hoping to attend. A royal source said the 100th anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's birth will not only be a poignant moment of reflection for His Majesty, it will be a cause for celebration of an incredible life well lived and a life dedicated to duty to her country. It is both the King and Queen's sincere wish that the commemorations honour the late Queen's profound devotion to service and celebrate how much she was respected and admired around the world. And look, that is all well and good, but I have to be honest about it. This is not enough, and the mainstream media are lying to you. The reason why Charles is in Scotland is because he is undergoing brutal treatment for his terminal cancer that is going to be paused in order for him to deliver this address and then travel to the US for the state visit with Donald Trump. But as his health deteriorates, this silence around the very obvious crisis engulfing the royals, given the police investigation, not to mention all of the trouble with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, I don't believe serves the monarchy well. And of course, Charles's own biographer, Robert Jobson, has revealed this week that his health is now so bad that Charles is actually falling asleep during official engagements while standing up. And again, my heart goes out to Charles, but I just feel like this strategy isn't working. Watch.
I mean, Tom, what he's going through and what he's doing, I've seen it at events, stood not that far from him, and he's almost falling asleep and standing up. And this is the man who believes wholeheartedly in his duty and his courage, and he's a courageous man. But I would say this: I think that if he felt that he could not carry out his duty because of ill health, and he felt that his health was in any way affecting his position, then he would actually not necessarily look to stand down, but he would probably say, "I can't continue with the treatment I've got, and I'll let him take his action," because I know that he does alternate his treatments. So he'll probably be doing the same ahead of this Washington visit to make sure he's got enough energy to give it his best shot. And that's what he's about, really. He knows he's a man in his late 70s. He knows that nobody lives forever. But luckily modern science has given us, medical science has given us a chance to live longer than, say, his grandfather who died of cancer in 56, and his great-grandfather who died of cancer, I think was 70. So, at this moment in time, he's given it his best shot.
But unfortunately, King Charles and Buckingham Palace continue to waste valuable energy trying to rehabilitate Andrew, a man that the public just will never accept a rehabilitation as possible. And Prince William is rightly furious about the latest bid this week, which started when 3 mainstream media publications were briefed that Prince Edward had visited Andrew over the Easter weekend. And this was very much pushing the idea that Andrew could kill himself. Let's just be frank about it, that Andrew's mental health is significantly suffering. So, for example, the Daily Mail quoted sources saying Edward and Sophie had dinner with Andrew one night over the weekend and they talked things through. It's true to say they both feel sorry for Andrew and how far he has fallen, and they are worried about his fragile state of mind. They do feel for him. But of course, that doesn't excuse his behaviour. It's a difficult balancing act, supporting him while not condoning what he has got involved with. Andrew still maintains he has not done anything wrong and thinks he will be vindicated one day. But I think Edward will have to try to talk some sense into him and make it clear his days as a working royal are over. It's like, are you kidding me? No one's even discussing the prospect of Andrew returning to royal duties. What the public wants to know is, was he guilty of any crime? And is there going to be justice? That's what the public cares about. Yet the British royal family are continuing to waste valuable real estate to try and make people feel sorry for Andrew. And even though the mainstream media won't admit it, Prince Edward basically admitted on stage earlier this year that Andrew is actually one of the victims in the Epstein scandal. Here's a reminder.
And it's super important because, you know, it's been dominating headlines. We all know the last few days have been very interesting, very difficult, and I'm sure for you, sir, as well. This is an important question to ask, and I want to ask it in the context of what we've seen from their majesties and their response, and they're saying that we should be focused specifically on the experience of the victims. The palace has been very, very clear on that. We've just heard some commentary from Prime Minister Keir Starmer as well, and bearing that in mind, and he's saying that there needs to be assistance for the victims. And I wonder what you think of this, because it is so close to home, clearly very difficult, and I know you've put in various plans in place to move the institution forward, but how are you coping with that?
Well, with the best will in the world, I'm not sure this is the audience that is probably the least bit interested in that. So they all came here to listen to about education solving the future. But no, I think it's all really important always to remember the victims. And who are the victims in all this?
And who are the victims in all of this? He was talking about the fact that Andrew was one of the victims. Meanwhile, we've got to also talk about missing Fergie, because is she cooperating with the police? I think that's a very serious question. And we now learn from the Daily Mail this week that Sarah Ferguson has 3 burner phones, looks a mess, and is moaning that she is broke. Remember, we have not seen Sarah Ferguson since the 12th of December, when she made an appearance at her granddaughter's christening in London. Alison Boshoff, the editor-at-large of the Daily Mail, reports described as being on a secret sofa surfing world tour. Fergie has apparently been staying at the homes of a succession of discreet, wealthy friends and remains in contact with a number of close allies through FaceTime calls. And the word they use to describe her is dishevelled. She hasn't been taking care of her roots or keeping up with her Botox, says one, with a grimace. We meant to feel sorry for her. Sightings have been made in several countries, but Fergie is dogged in her wish to stay under the radar. She really is low. She seems nervy, says a friend. The friend adds that she has 3 different mobile phones and is switching between them to try to evade detection. She has 3 phones and she goes cycling through them because she's afraid that she might be being tracked. She's convinced that a lot of people wish her harm. There seems to be no in-person contact at all with daughters Beatrice and Eugenie, who, according to Vogue writer Plum Sykes, appeared looking glossy and glowing at a Cotswolds party last month, telling the assembled company that they were doing fine. There is, as you would expect, bitter regret from Sarah, who believes that she was a gullible fool rather than more culpably involved, even though some of their contact, as in the contact with Jeffrey Epstein, post-dates his conviction and jailing for sex offences involving an underage girl. A friend said she has been asking, how am I going to get through this? She complains a lot about being broke, although I don't know if that is broke in the sense that you or I would understand it. Her friends have been joking that they wouldn't be surprised to find her selling her old handbags on Vinted. However, another friend hears differently. He tells me she was in Devon at first, I don't know with who. Then she went to Dubai. That was in February. Then she went to Austria and Switzerland. She's staying in some place which is like a castle now, and apparently there's an Italian count looking after her. Perhaps, though, the period of purdah is coming to an end. After all, as anyone who knows the former Duchess can attest, Fergie is happiest when in the spotlight. My source adds she says she will come back soon. Those who have for decades witnessed her chutzpah would not be surprised at all. Whether her return would be welcomed by anyone but her oldest friends is another matter entirely. So to Connor Tomlinson, the host of Tomlinson Talks on YouTube. Connor, I say this really is in crisis at the moment, and I feel like the only person within the royal family who understands that is Prince William. And he is pulling his hair out, or what little remains of his hair, constantly with Charles's missteps, like this latest misstep to try and in some way make us feel sorry for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor when he's in the midst of a police investigation. But I just want to kick off talking about this TV address, Connor. Is it really enough for Charles to get up in front of the nation, in front of the Commonwealth, and talk about his late mother? Yes, we absolutely should be celebrating Queen Elizabeth II on what would have been her 100th birthday. But personally, I just don't feel like this silence from Charles about what is the elephant in the room is sustainable. Where are you on this?
There are moments in royal history that feel routine, and then there are moments that feel like a signal. This feels like the second kind. A sudden decision to speak directly to the nation isn't just communication, it's intention. It's the kind of move that usually comes when something bigger is shifting beneath the surface. And the real question isn't just what will be said, but what isn't being said yet. Public speeches from a reigning monarch are rare, and that's exactly why they matter so much. Unlike interviews or statements from aides, this is the highest level of communication the monarchy can offer.
The demographic that are going to be wistful for Queen Elizabeth II compared to the terrible circumstances our country is in, and who are displeased with, as you said, Charles's unsuccessful reign, are again vanishing from the earth. I mean, you can only sort of rattle the nostalgia bells so often to distract people from just how nothing's working, nothing's getting better, it's all pretty dire. And to an extent, there's some criticism of the monarchy from the right, not just the left, the Green Party that want to disestablish it, and basically Charles III is doing all he can to be like a walking advertising campaign to young people for why that should be the case. But from the right, which says that, to an extent, Queen Elizabeth II, but certainly King Charles III, is presiding over the complete destruction of the country, the dispossession of the people whose well-being he is meant to be chiefly concerned with, of their own country. And so what is the purpose of the monarchy if it's just another brick in the building of the great organ of state that is trying to destroy everything that we love and hold dear? So I don't think that, a pre-recorded, scripted speech delivered by a man who is in ill health and has never looked particularly authoritative when he wasn't, is going to spare his legacy, the current poor esteem he's held in by the public, or the institution of the monarchy from the growing Republican sentiment that's in the country.
I know, and the problem is, Connor, that the Andrew disaster is really so terribly timed, because you've got a monarch who is not really able to work full time. And I do think we have to take that into consideration too. His cancer treatment is grueling, right? Like, again, the mainstream media don't talk about it in this country, but I do believe it's in the public interest. And obviously I haven't revealed what type of cancer Charles has or what type of treatment he is undergoing. But I think the fact that it is terminal cancer, and this is something that he has to factor into everything he does, is extremely relevant in all of this. But my problem is, Connor, why does he not listen more to William, who does have his finger much more on the pulse of where the public is at and how to save the British royal family's reputation? So, for example, I'll give you two examples, Connor. He thinks the king should have been much, much tougher on Andrew right at the start. He thinks that even now, Andrew and Beatrice and Eugenie should be removed from the line of succession. And he's also advocating for much tougher action against Prince Harry and Meghan Markle too, because it's almost like that's the other unexploded bomb, which at some point is going to go off.
I think it's because, Dan, that Charles doesn't make good judgment calls because he's not a man of good character and treatment of Princess Diana, but his obsession with the World Economic Forum, his worship of the climate cult, his constant glazing of Islam to the extent to where he hijacked his Christmas message to talk about how it's brilliant that Christianity allows interfaith dialogue, basically the promotion of Islam, and then sort of skip the Easter one, which I'm sure is in part to do with his ill health, but also, nobody would be shocked if, given his cancer is terminal, soon we find out he has a Muslim burial. And regarding the timeliness of the Epstein scandal, I've gotten very disillusioned with politics, and I think a lot of people have. And it's because there seems to be no accountability for anything. It's like the Epstein scandal breaks. Like, for years, we've known that there's just this conspiratorial, international financial cabal, seemingly run, according to some of the emails, on ethnic lines, but that encompasses, non-Jewish elites, including many Americans, and it turns out members of the British royal family. And we have photographs, we have email chains, we know that someone like Peter Mandelson was basically trading state secrets to his best friend, Jeffrey Epstein, was staying at his apartment even after he was a convicted sex offender. And in Mandelson's case, he's just been charged for peeing in public outside George Osborne's flat. That's it? Like, really? In
he's been fined.
Andrew's case, he's meant to
fined.
Yeah, he's meant to skulk off into obscurity, I guess. Sorry, are there no consequences for the entire ruling class being at least connected with one of the worst reprobates in Western history? Apparently not. And so this is why the speech won't solve anything. Even I think removing Andrew and that from the line of succession won't really solve much. This is a full spectrum. All of our institutions, our political class, our financial system, it's entirely captured by the worst people possible who do not care about us and are just lining their own pockets and, in some cases, laughing at our misery. And so unless there is a total clear out, unless there is accountability for all of these people, I don't see the kind of revolutionary fervor that is being directed, yes, at the abolition of the monarchy, but at politics, at society more broadly, going away anytime soon.
But Connor, as a sort of Christian religious man, a Catholic man, how do you deal with the family issue here, though? Because can you understand from particularly Prince Edward and Princess Anne's point of view, they feel that it's wrong to just walk away from their brother, to cut off contact from their brother, who, remember, they do believe is innocent, like the late Queen Elizabeth II always believed he's innocent. Now, they think he was stupid. Don't get me wrong, they think he was stupid, but they think he is innocent of any crime. And of course, even though there has been this terrible police and deep state cover-up, which really does make the situation much more murky, Andrew, in the true letter of the law, may be under police investigation at the moment, but he hasn't been charged with a crime, and he certainly hasn't been found guilty of any crime. So you have Anne and Edward saying, well, no, he remains our brother. We think you've been too tough on him. We are going to continue contact. Yet you have William, who's viewing this from a PR point of view in terms of how to save the British royal family, saying, well, no serving working member of the royal family can be pictured with Andrew or Beatrice or Eugenie, or you're out. So where do you stand on that? Because for me, on a personal basis, even though I think the royal family have mishandled this so badly, I would always stand by
Historically, these moments are reserved for times of crisis, transition, or major national reflection. So, when one is announced unexpectedly, it immediately raises the stakes. This isn't just about delivering a message, it's about shaping perception, reinforcing authority, and in some cases, quietly preparing the public for what lies ahead. The timing of this speech is impossible to ignore. In the royal world, nothing is accidental, especially not something this visible. When events line up this precisely, it often suggests coordination behind the scenes. Advisors, strategists, and senior figures will have weighed every possible outcome before deciding this moment is the right one. So why now? Is it about reassurance? Damage control? Or is it about getting ahead of a narrative before it takes on a life of its own? Whenever health becomes part of the conversation around a monarch, the tone shifts instantly.
Considering you mentioned Catholicism, I mean, the injunction in the Bible is given by Christ is repent, go forth, and sin no more. And I don't think there's been much repentance from Andrew, from the royal family, but broadly.
Well, none from Andrew. I think you can say that Charles and William have released statements now, which do make clear that they have huge regrets, but none from Andrew.
Yes, but even if he didn't do something illegal, I mean, he was still cavorting with, again, a cabal of the worst reprobates imaginable, you know. For audio listeners, Dan is nodding furiously. I think we all agree with that. And so people's immorality must have consequences. Otherwise, and let's make it purely sort of like secular and just based on how to have healthy relationships here. If you allow someone to be in your life who is either exploitative or just like one step removed from the worst sort of exploitative people possible, they will bring those people into your life, or they will continue doing exploitative things if you allow them to get away with it. And so, yes, they may be your family member, but if they are like contaminating your life, your broader social sphere, with at the very least in Andrew's case, his unrepentant and awful inability to judge good characters, then just don't have them around you. And sometimes the best way to have people learn their lesson is for them to lose your company if they value it, and then they have to reassess their own behaviors as to why they're no longer in your life. And then maybe they can come to you, apologize, repent, make restitution. But by sort of hanging around and not punishing him for what he's done wrong, not legally, sure, fine, but morally, I just don't think that's gonna produce a healthy monarchy. I don't think it's going to produce a healthy family. I don't think it's a good thing to model for society broadly.
Very well put. Connor Tomlinson, the host of Tomlinson Talks on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here, Connor. Really, really appreciate it. Have an amazing weekend.
It introduces uncertainty into an institution built on stability. Even without explicit details, the mere mention of illness creates a ripple effect. People begin to think about continuity, leadership, and what happens next. And in a system where succession is always structured but rarely discussed openly, even subtle signals can carry enormous weight. The royal family has been navigating a complex landscape, public scrutiny, shifting loyalties, and a media environment that amplifies every detail. In times like these, perception becomes everything. One speech can either calm the waters or intensify the spotlight. This address could be an attempt to bring clarity, to show unity, or even to draw a line under ongoing narratives that have been building for months. But whether that works depends entirely on how the message is received. There's another layer to this control of the story. When speculation begins to dominate headlines, institutions often respond by taking back the narrative.